It's time to wake to sleep with Sleep Science Today, where we learn to sleep well with your host, Andrew Kolsky on UK Health Radio.
Welcome to Sleep Science Today. I'm your host, Andrew Kolsky. In Sleep Science Today, we talk all about sleep and the actual science behind sleep to help you sleep better. Today, we have a guest, Lydia Leung, and she is CEO and co-founder of Belon. And this is some sleep technology that we're going to learn about. So, Lydia, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Andrew. Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, we're glad to have you here. We love to have, the people behind the scenes that can really tell us about what's going on out there in the sleep industry. So you have been, I don't even know how long you've been working on this product, so you can tell us that. But start off by telling us why sleep? Why are you even interested in sleep?
Yeah, because before I found this company with two another co-founders back in 9 years ago, I was working in the research industry for medtech for different chronic disease, from hypertension, diabetes, and even dementia. But finally, we figured out that indeed a lot of chronic disease, especially cardiovascular related, are highly correlated with sleep problems. But by then, if you can imagine back in 9 years ago, there is just only different kind of wristband wearable, but those are non-medical grade device. When you ask doctors about whether I can rely on those data, you provide me the treatment or diagnosis, they probably say, no, you can just for your own reference. And that's why back in 9 years ago, we have our vision is that whether we can have a wearable still, but it is a medical grade one, and doctors can rely on the data and combine with the technologies of AI, whether we can help people to diagnose different type of sleep disorder at home. And that's how we start the story today.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so I can imagine right away that there's probably some listeners that have a question to say, well, I spent a lot of money on my Apple Watch or my Fitbit or whatever it is that they have. And then they hear you talk about medical grade versus consumer grade, and they're probably wondering, what's the difference? I mean, if I'm spending so much money on this technology, how much better is medical grade, and what does that even mean?
I think the most key is that for medical grade wearable, you will have different kind of clinical validation for the data, and also it must meet the accuracy of the regulatory bodies. For example, in the US, you need to meet the standard of FDA, and like in Europe, you need to meet CE/MDD. And so, based on all this regulatory approval, then doctors can rely on those data and make the diagnosis for you, and also they can base on the data to do the treatment. But of course, we think that it is good to have so many kind of consumer wearables in the market as well, because at least people are aware of the issue that they have. For example, now Apple Watch, they may flag you that you may need to see a doctor. And so they can make use of our really medical device to get the diagnosis. So all in all, I would say is improving the whole community about the awareness of sleep health, and which is very important, because before what we think about is just I need a blood pressure meter at home, I need a blood glucose, but never think about sleep. But now people knows that, wow, sleep indeed is a source and also one of the driver of different kind of chronic disease. So I think it is good and complementary to each other.
Fantastic, fantastic. So in a little bit, we'll talk more details about your particular product. But before we do that, what I'd like to know is, we've had a lot of guests talk about this, and you've mentioned it yourself, that there's issues that people have related to cardiovascular disease and dementia and all other types of things that people legitimately should be worried about. And can you give us a better understanding of how does sleep tie into that? Is it that if I have one of these problems, I don't sleep well? Or is it if I'm not sleeping well, I'll get one of these problems? What's the science behind all that?
Yeah, Yeah, this is basically a very challenging question because we never know which is the source and which is the results, basically. And but you can imagine like people who have sleep apnea, which means you stop breathing during sleep, but without knowing, then basically you can see there is a significant drop in your blood oxygen level. And so you can imagine throughout the night, if, for example, some people even stop breathing for 30 times per hour. So throughout the night, the blood is all lack of oxygen. Then you can imagine is that, wow, maybe some of my brain cell is killed during the process. And this may also worsen my situation and may lead to I may have earlier dementia. And you can also imagine is that our body is very smart. When I was in lack of oxygen, what our body response will be, you can see is your pulse rate will pump faster and also your blood pressure will push higher and such that you can have enough oxygen. And with this, you will push high the pulse rate and also the blood pressure. And so when you wake up in the morning, you not only feel tired, or when you would just wake up and measure your blood pressure, you'll find that, wow, it's very high. But before, if I don't have this kind of devices that can perform the test during sleep, then probably I don't know about it. I just know that, wow, I may not sleep well, and that's why I have high blood pressure. But if with all this medical grade device that I can use naturally at home, I would be alerted and also I can know that I have this issue.
Okay, so you hit upon another important question there, which is, so what percentage, and I'm not looking for the exact answer, but in generally, when people are sleeping, you said someone who's not sleeping well. So how do I know that I should even bother to be checking my sleep? Am I always going to be in a situation where I am exhausted during the day and I know that I'm not sleeping well? Or are there people who think they're sleeping well but aren't sleeping well?
Yeah, this is a very good question. And if you have a partner, sometimes we figure out that one of the patient who come to us for a test is usually their partner complain that wow, you snore so loud and make my sleep quality so bad. Okay, so snoring is one of the symptoms. And secondly is that if you after lunch or whenever you are watching a movie or TV or get on a bus, then you can fall asleep maybe within a minute, then probably that tell you some symptoms, you have the issue. Or when you wake up, you feel you have the headache, your mouth is very dry, or some of the people will wake up quite often and need to go for toilet very frequently during sleep when they wake up. And these are also symptoms of having the issue of sleep as well.
So, I'm just thinking to myself, the snoring part we hear a lot about when we talk about sleep apnea. And is it that anybody who snores probably has sleep apnea, or are there people who snore and don't have sleep apnea?
I would say usually people who snore, they have a higher chance of having sleep apnea. The reason behind is for obstructive sleep apnea, basically it is a partial or completely block of your airway. Okay, so it's just like playing some musical instrument. And if there is partial block and you can see there's some resonance and that which create the snoring sound. So basically, if you're having snoring, this is one of the symptoms of having sleep apnea. And that's the reason why we would like to have some very convenient device which is wearable and which allow you to conduct all these tests at home. Because each day, if you have different sleeping posture, your snoring may gone. Okay, and if you are very tired in the morning, and your snoring may be more serious at night, but that day, if you are not that tired, you may not snore that much. And so basically, there will be some nice to nice variability of the situation. So we always say most important is how we can gather accurate data, report and record your real situation, especially like at home. You are sleeping at the natural pillow, the bedding that you are having, and also all the temperature environment. And this will give you the most of the insights about your sleep quality.
So I want to ask one more question about snoring before we move into some of these other things. So, are there people who don't snore but do have sleep apnea? Do we ever see that?
Yes, there will be chance like this because, for example, some of the people, when they have the sleep apnea, they may have completely blocked their airway. Then you probably may not hear the sound, but they may have choking. That means when their oxygen desaturation fall below a certain percentage, then they just suddenly wake up and they are short of breathing and they just like this, but they wake up already and they may not have the snoring. And also for sleep apnea, there's another type of sleep apnea called the central sleep apnea. That means your brain does not tell you to breathe. And for this case, you also have the chance of sleep apnea, but without snoring. And so if you feel really tired when you wake up, and you probably worth to perform a test.
Wow. Okay. Okay. So, yeah, for me, one of the things that I did not know before that I learned after getting into this field and practicing the clinical side of this is, so often if we're looking on the internet or we're reading news articles about sleep apnea, we see the stereotypical overweight male with a thick neck and all this type of stuff. And that still remains true that those people are, susceptible to sleep apnea. But what I didn't know was a lot of women as they get into their 50s or so who aren't necessarily overweight and don't really meet that profile, they also develop a lot of sleep apnea. What can you tell us anything about that? Why is that?
Yeah, indeed, it is a quite interesting phenomenon, especially people are getting in their menopause, and because the different kind of hormone secretion, and that will also lead to women to have a high chance of having sleep apnea after a certain age. And another thing that we always joke to people is that when ladies, they always worry about, wow, I need to do the facial and my muscles start to be loosen when I'm aging, right? And this will happen at the same time in the muscle around your airway. Okay, so you can imagine why the percentage of people having sleep apnea will grow very significantly for 40 plus is with the loosening of the muscle. When you sleep on your bed, it's very easy that your tongue will move backward, and also the muscle loosen, then you will partially also block your airway. And that's why you can see when we have aging, there people have a high chance of snoring, and also they have a much higher prevalence of people having the sleep apnea. And just take myself as an example, my BMI is just around 18 something. Okay, not yet 19, but I also have mild to moderate sleep apnea. And the reason behind is that I have quite serious nose allergy, so I'm very used to use my mouth to breathe. And this also increased my chance of having the sleep apnea. So basically, we would say that yes, having obesity or high BMI have a higher chance of having sleep apnea, but not necessarily.
Wow. Okay. So that's interesting. Yeah, because a lot of times, I might suggest if I'm working with a 50-year-old female who has insomnia and we're trying to figure out what's going on, I might say, you might want to be checked for sleep apnea. And they're like, well, but I'm not overweight and I'm not, I don't fit any of the characteristics. I say, well, actually, you do fit the characteristics, just not the ones you're thinking of fitting. So
Yeah.
it is important that people become aware that you can have sleep apnea and not necessarily be overweight and all those criteria. So well, let's do this. Let's take a commercial break, and when we come back, let's talk more about some of this technology now. So join us right after the break, and we're going to talk more about sleep technology. I'm your host, Andrew Kolsky. We'll see you back right after the break. If you're having trouble sleeping and you need support, don't go it alone. Join us at our free online support group at sleepsupportgroup.com. Just put in your email address, sign up for the list, and you will be notified of all of our upcoming meetings. It's free, so why not try it out? All right, welcome back to Sleep Science Today. We're talking with Lydia Leung, and she is from Belong, and they have some sleep technology, primarily a sleep ring. So, Lydia, here's what I would like to know. We're talking about sleep apnea, and I think a lot of people hear now these days about sleep apnea testing, and they're used to the concept of, oh my gosh, I don't want to have to go into a sleep lab, and I can never get the thing scheduled, and it's expensive, and I get all these wires hooked to me, and all these things. And now we're hearing more and more about home sleep apnea tests. And the challenge is, if you go out on the internet or anywhere and you start looking up home sleep apnea tests, you're going to see a whole bunch of different types of devices, things that you wear on your wrist, things you wear on your finger, all sorts of things. Can you give us a rundown of what is the difference between all these things? What do they actually do? Just help us understand it.
Okay. Yeah, indeed, I think since maybe 9 years ago to 10 years ago, we starting different kind of concept of home sleep apnea tests. And the reason behind is just Andrew, you mentioned, because it's quite crowded in the lab and a long queue, and also it's quite expensive and inconvenience for people to travel a long way to an in-hospital sleep test. And that's how people come up with the home sleep test. And before, when we have the home sleep test, we still need some people to go up to your home to hook up all this wire. But I think recently there are much more handy device that either you wear on the wrist, at the fingertips, and with some little wire or even some ring recently. And all of them, most important is whether they got the regulatory approval. And you need to pay attention is that you need to get the device from your trusted doctors or medical professional, and to make sure that those device is accurate enough and such that it can really tell you the truth of your situation. And that's why we have quite emphasized a lot. If you are for diagnostic purpose, you need a medical grade device, and it has been massively clinically validated and also being regulated, and to ensure its accuracy. And also, if they tell you you are test positive, you are really positive. And if you are test negative, you are really negative. And this is the most crucial thing that you need to pay attention. But of course, you are saying, oh, no, I'm not for diagnosis. I just want to understand my sleep pattern a bit. Then probably you can buy the device just maybe online. Sometimes you can find some device as well.
Mm-hmm. So the accuracy of a sleep test in the lab with all of the wires and all that versus these home tests, how big of a difference is there, or is there any difference?
Okay, indeed, there can be a some range, but I would say for those that you can get from your doctors or regulatory approval, if the intended use of the approval is really for diagnostic aids, then usually they will have an accuracy very close to 90%. And just like our own device, together with the AI, our accuracy is more than 90%. The sensitivity and the specificity, that means we tell you is you are test positive and you are really positive, and we tell you is negative, it's really negative, it's also more than 90%. And this is very important, especially when you compare with we call the in-lab PSG, which is the gold standard testing that you will be done in the hospital.
Mm-hmm. So somebody uses a home test, and the home test says that they test positive for sleep apnea. Do they have to follow it up by going into a lab to get a confirmation, or is the test itself enough?
Okay, if the device that you use is a medical grade run, approved for diagnostic aid for the sleep apnea, then probably you don't need to go further into a lab unless you have other complications. What kind of complication? For example, if you have hidden like AF, arrhythmia, heart failure, or you have COPD as well, and those patients probably they need to further to be sent into a in-lab PSG to confirm it. But usually for maybe 80% of the population without any complication or comorbidity, probably they can complete the home sleep test and get diagnosis directly already.
Okay, does the home sleep test tell them whether they might have any of those other complications, or the home sleep test is purely for sleep apnea?
Okay, it depends on the type of home sleep test. And for example, of course, if the device is prescribed by the doctor And usually the doctors will have your medical history. So if you have heart failure, COPD, etc., probably they will admit you into in-lab PSG already. But there may be hidden issue of arrhythmia. So like ours, we will also at the same time to screen out all the pulse shape of the patient who are using our system to see whether they have the risk of having the arrhythmia and such that they can lead to further referral for in-lab PSG. And you can see recently quite a number of home sleep test device also will have this function inherent in the system, but not only for sleep apnea, and such that they can refer patient for further tests if they need it.
Okay, great. So let's talk a little bit about the specific technology that your company has developed. So you have a ring, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So right away, my first thought is a ring. What can a ring tell me? How is that going to be accurate at all? So can you enlighten us as to how that works?
Okay. I think today is thanks to the technology, both from the bioscience technology and also AI. Now AI is everyone is wanted already, and why a little ring can be used to have a similar function or have similar accuracy as an in-lab PSG for most of the patient is because during nights, with today's sensing technology, we can sense the vital sign as a very high sampling rates. Okay, and basically, we can capture all the pulse shape, your pulse rate, your pulse oximetry, and also all your motion during your sleep. And with the power of the AI, we will be able to compare, for example, a patient is wearing our ring, and at the same time, they are doing all the in-lab PSG testing, and we can collect both data at the same time. Okay, and from this data, we'll be able to train the AI to recognize the pattern. For example, when, as I mentioned, if you have sleep apnea, for example, then lead to the desaturation of your pulse oximetry. And at the same time, your pulse will pump faster. Okay, and also our ring will at the same time collect your heart rate variability and the autonomic nervous system response. And as you have mentioned, is why people having diabetes usually they will overlap with the sleep apnea, is because during desaturation you will also trigger your autonomic nervous system response. So from these multiple parameters and channels that we collected, then we can recognize, wow, at this moment, with the change in the pulse shape, with the change in your pulse rate, your pulse oximetry, and also your autonomic nervous system, we will be able, this moment is the moment that you are having the sleep apnea and the events. And through, like our system, we have used more than 200 million of data sets to train the AI to recognize all this pattern. And so we can correctly identify this is really the moment that you are having the sleep apnea events. And so how you gather all this data and how you clinically validate your AI is very important. And because you can see is that like during COVID, we figured out that even pulse oximetry, it can be very sensitive to people different skin tone. And that's why when we do the clinical validation, we pay a lot of attention to make sure that while we develop the AI, it will be very robust and it will be insensitive to the skin tone, insensitive to gender, to the age, and also the races, and such that it can have the accuracy same for different population. And that's why when we develop our system, we conduct a clinical study in the US. Also, we conduct a lot of study in Asia. And so we can have a huge pool of population with a combination of different races, gender, and also age to make sure that the AI is really robust enough when we put the device into the market and also used by the patient and doctors.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So a lot of background work already. So then, with all of the studies you've done and all the work that you've done, are there certain people, whether it be age, gender, race, whatever it may be, are there certain categories of people that the test does not work as well with?
Yes, especially people who have the complication. And just like what we have mentioned is that, for example, people who have quite severe AF, okay, or they have lots of arrhythmia, then probably because we also rely on the response of the autonomic nervous system response of the patient to identify the events. And for those type of patients, it probably will not be suitable for doing a home sleep test. And like, for example, some patients, they may be discharged from heart failure, and those kind of patient, we probably will also suggest them to still have the in-app PSG instead of having a home sleep test.
So if someone is using your product, for example, versus one of the other home sleep tests, how long do they have to use it? Is it a one-night thing, or do they use it longer? What do you recommend?
We usually will recommend the patient to use this for 3 nights. And the reason behind, even though we have an accuracy more than 90%, just doing 1 night when compared with the in-app PSG, but we still recommend 3 nights. The reason behind is there will be night-to-night variation. Like if I'm very busy, I'm very tensed at daytime today, a lot of meeting, then tonight I may be very tired and my number may goes up. Okay, and if I just use 1 night to make the decision, then I may overestimate or have misclassification. And if the beauty of the home sleep test is that with handy device, easy to use device, and low cost device, we will be able to do multiple night tests. And also we have did a quite simple studies to look into if how about I do it for 7 nights. Compare with 3 nights and what is the changes. And from that particular study and pilot, we figure out that, wow, 3 nights most likely will be the most optimal one to come up with the less variance and also most accurate classification for the severity of sleep apnea. And that's why usually we will recommend the patient to use this for 3 nights. And so their doctors can understand their sleep architecture much more easier. And especially because, as you mentioned, we have some females, they particularly have REM-related OSA. That means they will have the sleep apnea events much more during REM stage. And for those patients, it's better to have multiple night tests because the duration of REM or the percentage of REM during sleep may be vary from night to night. And without the REM stage, they don't even have sleep apnea, and you may misdiagnose the patient. And that's why it is quite important indeed to have a multiple night test.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so let me stop us for our second commercial break here, and then we'll come back and I want to talk about how people actually can get access to these tests. So we'll be right back on Sleep Science Today. You're watching Sleep Science Today. If you enjoy our show, please help support us by pressing the like button, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell. It'll really help us get seen, and it'll help you stay informed. All right, welcome back to Sleep Science Today. I'm your host, Andrew Kolsky. We're talking about Milan, and we're talking about a sleep apnea test ring. Okay, so is this something that anybody can just go out on the internet and buy and test themselves, or do they have to have a doctor? Or tell us the details.
Okay, our ring currently has been deployed to 6 countries and regions, and because we got the US FDA clearance, and also we get the regulatory approval in Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, India, and also Taiwan, and we have deployed in Hong Kong. And according to the regulatory, because this is a class 2 medical device, and so currently the device is under prescription. So probably if you want to perform a test, you need the prescription from a doctors and pick up from the clinic or hospital from doctors currently. Yeah.
Okay, so when you say you have to get a prescription from a doctor, would people go to their primary care doctor? Would they have to go to a special sleep doctor? Who can actually give it to them? Okay,
so it depends on the regulatory in different countries and region. Take US as an example. You probably need a sleep physician and a specialist. And the sleep physician can be your family doctors who has been a sleep fellow or a specialist who also have a certificate in sleep specialists, and so you can get the ring from them, and such that you can bring it back home and perform the test, and finally get the reports from the doctors, and also he or she would be able to get you a diagnostic result and to follow up with the treatment.
Okay, so I get a prescription for this ring. I guess my doctor provides the ring to me. Is that how it works?
Yep.
And then I will wear it for a couple nights. Am I able to see the data, or do I have to get my doctor to show me? How does that part work?
Okay, so our design of the ring is that if you are a tech savvy and you can know how to use a smartphone, basically we allow the patient to use an app to remote upload the data, and so the doctors, before they get back the ring, can know the results of the patient already, and can inform the patient in advance before they go back for the consultation. But also we also design the ring such that it can be used by patients who don't know any IT technology. They don't even have a smartphone. Then they can just plug and play using our system and bring back the whole device back to the clinic, and the nurse can help them to upload the data and generate the reports for them before they consult the doctors. And that is how we work. And usually we do not recommend to release the result before the patient go back to the doctors, because we want the doctors to explain the reports for the patient, and such that they won't misunderstand the data or misinterpret the data. And also our motivation to get the ring easily to be used by the patient is that we want to take out 80% of diagnostic application. And so with this information, then the doctors can encourage the patient to take the test easily. And at the same time, if they are really test positive, they can be advised to take the treatment, and which is the most important.
Mm-hmm. So if somebody uses the ring and they do, the tests and all that, is it only testing for sleep apnea, or might it be testing for other things that they, need to know about?
Yeah, this is a very good question. Because when we get the regulatory approval, we got the apnea hypopnea index, which can be used for the diagnostic aids for sleep apnea, and at the same time, we get the clearance for the sleep stages. Okay, and so from our reports, you will be able to tell how much time the patient sleep, and also how much time the patient wake up. And so we do have some statistics to doctors to visualize what is the sleep efficiency of the patient. Because it's quite common, especially to elderly, they will sometimes report that, wow, I have insomnia. I cannot get into sleep. But finally, after they do the test, indeed, they don't have any insomnia. And what they have is a very severe sleep apnea. And because their sleep apnea is so severe that the drop in the oxygen level is so much, they was waking up every 30 minutes. And then they will feel that, oh, I always wake up in the middle of the night. I probably have insomnia. But finally, the patient is having severe OSA. And we say that it is very important is because from the sleep architecture, from the sleep apnea index, I can really figure out what the patient need to be treated. Take this as an example. If I really just listen, oh, I have insomnia, then I prescribe you some sleeping pill. That will make the situation even worse, because with the sleeping pill, you will make the sleep apnea more severe. So we always say data never lie, and we probably need to get more data and to figure out the root cause of the sleep problem the patient really have, and such that we can tailor make and personalize the treatment for the patient. So our ring is not only used for diagnostic purpose, we also can be used by the patient and accompany the patient to go through their treatment journey. Like, for example, some of the patients, they may not be able to tolerate a respiration machine. Okay, they may probably do some surgery, or they have some implantation of the devices. So, but how they can tell it is really effective to them, right? And so with the ring, then after they have the diagnosis, then we will release the result for them with an app. And so every day when they wake up, they say, wow, I not only feel better and more refreshed, but my number goes down. So I will be more compliant to the treatment that I'm having. And this is one of the very important vision of our company is that how I not only take out the issue, but more important is how can I, from the results and the data, encourage the patient to compound with their treatment. Like insomnia patient, we are also having always some non-pharmaceutical treatment, like the cognitive behavior therapy for insomnia. And with our rate, then they can probably say, wow, after 1 month of treatment, I can see that the number of weight that I have is much less. And it may now take me just 10 minutes to get into sleep instead of an hour. And so I will know, oh, this particular treatment suit me very much. I may not need to take any pills anymore. So with the data, we envision that in the future there can be all kinds of treatment that can be personalized to suit the habit and the character of different people, and such that they can find the most comfortable way and the treatment that they want. And also most important is they can compound to the treatment.
Mm-hmm. And you answered some of the questions that I was going to ask there, but I guess I still have one more question, which is, so if somebody takes this test, they find out that they have sleep apnea, they get prescribed whether it be a CPAP or a mandibular device or whatever it may be, and they start using this new thing to help them get over the apnea. Do doctors ever send them back to get tested again to make sure that that device is actually helping?
Yes, indeed, our device is quite commonly used by the doctors when they have different treatment, including respiration machine. And yeah, because for traditional respiration machine, some of them you may not be able to read directly whether my number is reducing. But with our ring, when the patient wake up and they just turn on the apps, they will be able to see, wow, my numbers look great today, right? And like people who have the implantation, then they may not even know whether it is effective or not, but just based on feeling. But now what we do is we help people to quantify. And also like people when they have different treatment, they may find that while the pressure, the larger, maybe I can set my AHI to 0, but the patient may not feel that it's very comfortable and their compliance can be low. But with the ring, I may say that, well, can I ask my doctors to fine tune the pressure to be lower a bit? I feel more comfortable, even though my AHI number maybe 4 is not 0, but I feel much better, and that will be better to the benefits to the patient. And if they can compound with the treatment, why not? Because at least now I can reduce my apnea index from 30 to 4. That is very great already, as long as I can compound with the treatment. And this is the kind of interaction that we would like to have to enhance between the relationship between the patient and the doctors as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay. So obviously, with AI and all of the advancements that we're seeing in sleep medicine over the last, like you said, over the last 10 years, there's been a lot of new things coming out. So what do you see for the future? Where are we going with all of this?
Yeah, I think this area is fascinating because with all this data that we can collect, it's not just about sleep, but also with other vital signs that the patient is collecting nowadays. And also together with the compliance of the treatment and the result, probably with all this data very soon, we probably will be able to tell from the test already to know what's the best treatment that should be most appropriate to the patient. And for one of the example, like we figure out that some of the patients, when they do the CPAP machine and their autonomic nervous system, for example, will be triggered, okay? And that may lower their compliance to the CPAP machine. And that can be one of the parameters in additional to AHI that can guide what kind of treatment that may be more appropriate to the patient. And we will envision that with all this data and AI, with this pattern recognition, in the future, we hope that while we do the diagnosis, at the same time, we can help the patient to categorize and phenotype or endotype to understand the reason behind and tailor-make and personalize the treatment for them in the future.
Wow. Yeah. So this whole concept of personalized medicine and personalized treatments, and even timing of medicine and things in some areas is really interesting, and how quickly that's evolving. Yeah, wow. So, gosh, I was just going to ask you one other thing. What was I going to ask you? Oh, I know what I was going to ask you. So we've talked about this in your product in the United States. You've talked about Asia. Is it available in any European countries?
At this moment, not yet, because we are still need to going through all the regulatory for medical device, and so we probably next step need to get the CE MDD first, and such that we can launch in the European countries.
Great, fantastic. Well, I want to thank you for taking the time to come on the show and explain all this to us. And the good news is that there's so many new opportunities for people to be able to learn more about their sleep, and they don't have to go through all of these long waiting lists to get into a lab and go through all of the things that some people fear. These are things that you can do at home, and simply wearing a ring sounds pretty simple to do. So I'm glad that these technologies exist. With that, let me thank everybody for listening to Sleep Science Today. I encourage you to visit us on our website, www.sleepsciencetoday.com. You can sign up to join our mailing list. We'll keep you informed of things that are going on. We have a lot of interesting things and good information that comes out beyond just the radio show, so don't miss out on that. So, Lydia, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really appreciate you being here for us.
Thank you, Andrew, for the invitation and your passion about sleep health.
Great. So we look forward to seeing all of you on future episodes of Sleep Science Today. Stay tuned and sleep well.
Thank you for listening to Sleep Science Today and learning how to sleep better with your host, Andrew Kolsky, on UK Health Radio. For more information on how you can achieve better sleep, go to sleepsciencetoday.com. Remember, sleep science today and sleep better tonight.